If you're thinking about suspension for your C10,
You don't want to miss this video.
let's check it out. All right, guys, we're in the shop here today, and we're checking out two C10s, and I'm here with Damian Braze, our fitment technician. And one of the cool things is the two C10s we have behind us are not only our personal trucks, but they had a heavy role in the development of our C10 suspension. And so let's have a discussion here today and talk about the careful thought and R&D process that we put into these trucks and the suspension that resulted. And I guess help anybody that's considering suspension for their truck better make a decision on what they're going to be doing for theirs. So Damian, just kind of kicking things off, reflecting back a couple years ago to when we launched these products and developed them, what were some of the things that stick out in your mind as being some of the major goals and considerations as we sought out for development?
Well, we wanted to be able to lower the trucks. So we wanted to get them on coilovers, all four corners. We wanted to improve the ride quality. You know, old trucks drive like old trucks, which is fun if it's grandpa's truck, but if it's something that you want to put a lot of miles on, you want to be comfortable when you're driving it. You want it to handle well, you want it to ride well, and and we also wanted to make sure it was something that was relatively easy to install. Yeah. So with the truck kits, that means let's do it with the bed on.
Right, and so you hit on a couple key things. So ride height's a big one, getting that perfect stance. That was one of the major topics that we sought out for in this project. The ride quality and drivability don't always come hand in hand with a lowered stance. I know with my truck, originally when I first had purchased it, driving down a freeway where you hit expansion joints or on a backcountry road that's maybe not super smooth, the truck would just float and you're constantly chasing the wheel. A little unnerving at speed, to be perfectly honest.
Sure.
Yep.
Or, a lot of the 72 and earlier trucks didn't come with a front sway bar. So I remember riding around with Grandpa when I was a kid in his 72. We always thought Grandpa was a crazy driver.
He just didn't have a sway bar.
That may have been part of it, but there also was not a sway bar on that truck.
Right. Well, and then, one of the other things that we really focus on, and we do this for all of our suspension systems, is we put a lot of time and energy into the installation experience. And oftentimes, a lot of the careful thought and consideration into either the design or the things that we include don't always get, discussed in whether it be the marketing material that gets put out on it or different things. Let's talk about that. Let's dive into some of those considerations for installation. Damian, from kind of your thoughts and reflection back on the kit, what were some of the bolting considerations that we had to make on both the square body and the 63 to 72 trucks?
Well, the biggest one, and I think we played up a lot in our videos and advertising, is they can be installed with the bed on the truck. You don't have to call up a couple buddies, come over, help you lift the bed off. You can just put it up on jack stands, do it in your garage at home.
Yep.
So, that's a big one. Having the hardware to be able to install everything, the front U-bolt kits for the lower control arms.
That's a big one, and one that I don't think really gets emphasized enough. So for those that are unfamiliar, if you haven't been underneath your C10 in a while, the lower control arms are held on by U-bolts. And Damian, you have to remind me here on exactly the year split, but the early trucks had a relatively thin U-bolt.
So on the half tons, GM actually used 3 different bolt sizes over the years. 67-ish and earlier, they were a 7/16 diameter. About 67, 68 to 72, GM stepped it up to a 1/2 inch bolt on the half tons. And then 73, they stepped it up to a 9/16 thread.
Sure.
So being that, your truck's a perfect example, you've got a lot more engine and a lot more power than those trucks were ever designed for. Having that 9/16 bolt is a definite benefit to make sure the lower control arm stays attached.
Right, and that's something that we include automatically in the kit. So If you get home from work on a Friday night, you're excited to start installing your suspension system, or it's the weekend, you know you have all the parts that you need. And that's the biggest frustration, at least from my end, is when I'm installing something and I find out, oh shoot, I have to go get this part. And so that's something I'm really happy that we were able to build into this kit. But in addition too, I think packaging of how all the components work within the chassis are really important to discuss too, because I know when building this truck, there were some major considerations that I had right from the get-go. One being the fuel tank, the other being what rear end housing I was going to use into the future. So touch on the fuel tank first. As many of you know, the fuel tanks on the early trucks are in the cab with you. So not only is there potentially a safety hazard of having 20 gallons of fuel 4 inches from your back, but in addition, that fuel is sitting up relatively high in terms of your center of gravity, and moving that towards the rear down low is going to have a lot of benefits, not only safety, but also just the performance of the vehicle as it handles. And so when we're looking at our rear link suspension and looking at the panhard bars and looking at how it has to be tight against the pumpkin, but not too far back where it'll interfere with the gas tank. Those are major considerations. I know on the square bodies, there's fuel tank considerations as well.
Yeah, so the square bodies come with saddle tanks mounted outboard of the frame on both sides or either side, depending on the year of the truck. And you know, it's great if somebody wants to go to a rear-mounted fuel tank. There's still room to do that because it's a very similar panhard bar setup to what we're using on the early trucks. But not everybody wants to go to a rear-mounted fuel tank. You know, you don't have the safety considerations with the tank in the cab. It's already mounted down low. So, you know, we wanted to make sure that we kept the option to run the factory fuel tanks.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. So, you know, whether you have plans right now or down the road to do maybe something different with your fuel tank, be considerate of the kit that you're looking at and making sure that it'll work with both situations, because you don't want to find that you have to start changing out your suspension later because you decide to move your fuel tank. But another area that I touched on was the rear end housing. My truck came stock with a 12-bolt one-wheel wonder. It was awesome. But as further upgrades got made to the truck, I started looking more at 9 inches and things like that, just for long-term durability and ease of maintenance and things of that nature. And the nice thing is there's a lot of companies out there that make drop-in housings that work with our suspension. In this truck particular, I use a Quick Performance 9-inch. It dropped in and the suspension would never know it was ever changed. And so that's something I think should be a consideration for people as well as they look at modifying their truck.
Now, those aftermarket housings for the early trucks, a lot of times they don't have the panhard bar mount on the center section.
Oh, yeah.
So our rear system works really well with that, being that we've mounted it on the passenger side truck arm. You don't have to worry about having a panhard bar mount on the housing itself.
That's right, that's right. And you know, another area to look at, you know, you're kind of shifting towards the front is, you know, getting these trucks low is important, right? The stance is everything for these trucks. And, you know, as you can see here, there's a lot of different wheel and tire packages you can choose from, whether it be something that's a little bit more traditional, something that's a little bit larger, more of a pro touring look, or maybe it's that deep dish, you know, 2022 style wheel that you want to maybe run on this truck. Now, one thing that you oftentimes find when you lower these trucks with different suspension kits is that you pull the wheel off center. So one of the things that we're able to do is give you that forward caster, but we did some unique things with the ball joints in terms of how we move the upper and lower in conjunction so that we're able to keep the wheel centered. I don't know if you have any comments to that.
It's more prominent on the 67 to 72s with the rounded wheel wells. So the trucks have such an aggressive caster gain as they're lowered. It just moves everything back in the wheel well.
Right.
And it's very noticeable on the 67 to 72s once they're lowered.
Yeah, and caster is so important. These trucks were designed to be easy steering way back when. The wheel and tires that people ran before are totally different, and the tires today, obviously being more radial based, are going to be completely different. Forward caster is more and more important because it helps with that straight line stability and that steering feel that we've become more accustomed to in recent years. So the caster is definitely important, definitely important. So, you know, the kit is built. We've had it on our trucks for, sorry, I think this is year 3 that I've had it on this truck. I think you've had yours on it for 3 years now. I'm
on my 3rd driving season with it.
Yep.
I mean, you had a lot more of the prototype production, so you had a little bit more seat time with it in the year prior to it being launched.
But one of the cool things was, as soon as we had, I guess, the production kits available, we set out on a lot of different road trips and journeys. One that sticks out in my mind the most is Hot Rod Power Tour of, is that 17 or 18?
18.
18. And one of the things that I can't emphasize enough about these kits is that they're designed to be driven. They're designed to not only sit low, look good, but they're great drivers. They are designed to go across the country, do anything you want to do, thrash on them, and ultimately be relatively respectful on the racetrack as well. There's a lot of these trucks that get autocrossed or road coursed. Drag racing, you're starting to see more of them in drag racing. But I can't help but think back to that power tour. We drove a couple thousand miles in just a matter
3,700 miles over 10 days through 13 states, and we did Tail of the Dragon.
That's right, we did Tail of the Dragon, which was an absolute blast. But I remember us going through there just commenting to the ride quality and how well the trucks performed through that. And since then, my truck has been in dozens of more states, raced in different events across the country. But again, I can't help but emphasize enough that it has the drivability and the comfort, yet has the performance characteristics to be very respectful on the racetrack as well. And that's something that really sticks out in my mind with these trucks. So,
yep.
Now, kind of in closing, for anybody that's been thinking about a suspension system for their C10, Damon, from your perspective, what are some things that one should consider when looking at different options for their truck?
Is it something that you can get as a full system, or are you going to be piecemealing something together? Is it something that's coming assembled, or are you going to have to do a bunch of paint and assembly on it when you get it? The nice thing about our control arms, you don't have to press the ball joints in. They're already installed. You don't have to put any bushings in. Pull it out of the box, bolt it on the truck.
Yeah, ease of installation is key, and again, that's a major focus as we build different suspension systems. But yeah, I reflect back to not only the ease of installation, but is everything there that you need? Again, we touched on the U-bolts, just one small detail. But I also look at, again, that future-proofing your truck in a manner where you're able to upgrade it down the road without having to rethink your suspension that's already been installed, whether it be that 9-inch, whether it be your fuel tank placement, or any other combination of things.
Sure.
And so being able to have that peace of mind that the suspension you install today will still be that suspension you're going to have 10 years from now across several other iterations of how you build your truck. So.
Yep.
All right, so there you have it. There's a deep dive into a lot of the considerations and thoughts that went into designing these suspension systems for our C10 pickups. If you want more information for your truck, visit qa1.net/C10. Visit us on social media, and make sure you like and subscribe to this video right here. Lots more coming your way. So in the meantime, guys, make sure you get out and go drive it.